I didn't plan on doing a video about this until I actually had a chance to sit down and read the article on this particular story. And it's about this black father that you see right here, and this is his daughter. And he's a person on TikTok. I've never heard of him until today. Who went viral for basically slamming critical race theory being taught in schools based on something that his daughter, who was this little girl right here, brought to his attention. And then he made a TikTok video with her basically talking about how critical race theory shouldn't be taught in schools. He even went as far as to tell her that her skin color didn't matter, and a whole lot more. Like him saying that wasn't even the worst thing that he said. I'm like, what world is he living in? And when you hear his name, it's like, really, you have this name and you okay. Let me just stop talking and get into it. And by the way, it's ironic that this interview that he had with his daughter beside him, he did it with Fox and Friends. How ironic, Fox and Friends was the ones that interviewed him after he made that statement. After going viral in a TikTok video for opposing critical race theory, Kory Yeshua, alongside his daughter Royalty, explained on Fox and Friends Thursday what inspired him to push back on the racially charged academic movement. I've just seen a lot of things going on in America right now, going on in the world. I see the agenda being pushed on our children, and they're trying to teach our children to look at each other, not from who they are as a person, but for their skin color. I just decided I want to get out there and show the world what I teach my daughter and the values that I instill in her about the content of her character and not the color of her skin, he told co-host Ainsley Earnhardt. You know, in a perfect world, that would actually work, but we don't live in a perfect world. And let's just talk about America. We don't live in a perfect nation. This guy right here is setting his daughter up for failure before she is even 10 years old. I don't even know how old she is, but she looks like she can't be any older than 5. Maybe. Yeshua was prompted to teach his daughter about racial segregation after she saw a video describing Jim Crow, a series of state and local policies that enforce racial segregation in southern states. They had played a video that kind of took me back, and it was about segregation, and there was a water fountain in the video that said whites only. And after the video, my daughter had come to me and said, why wasn't the white kid able to play with the black kid? Yeshua said he did not plan to discuss segregation with Royalty until much later in her life. That right there was a trigger moment for me. When he said he did not plan to discuss racial segregation with her until much later on in her life, my first question is, when and how much later in her life were you planning to do this? Was she going to be 10, 13, 16, 17, 18, 21? I'm trying to hit all the core ages because he didn't specify an age. He said much later in life, which means way past 10. Probably past 13. So you were going to probably wait until she got a wake-up call in real life to do this. This is what gets me about some of these black parents with parents like him. So you would rather wait until something racially happens to her, if it does, or when it does, to have the discussion instead of preparing her for when it might happen. He said he was not going to plan on having this discussion with her until much later in her life. My thing is, I'm going to remix it. I think he wasn't even going to plan on having that conversation with her at all. Because when I saw this post, someone had posted in the comments, and I'm going to ask that same question here. What is the race of the mother? Because if you look at him and look at her, you can clearly tell that this little girl is mixed with something else. I'm not going to say she's mixed with PC because I don't see it. Something tells me she might be mixed with maybe Latina, like maybe a Latina mother or a Mexican mother. Is somewhere in there, either Mexican or Latina, either Puerto Rican, Dominican, somewhere in that mold right there. And if y'all hear the dinging in the background, that is just my phone notifications going off. He said, I did not think she was ready for heavy things like Jim Crow yet, and I had to speak to her about that, and that's actually what led up to coming out and speaking to her about these things Yeshua said. Yeshua often posts TikTok videos that criticize democratic policies. According to the New York Post, the TikTok user said the BLM organization is for the destruction of America and the destruction of our families. So I already know where he's headed with that. I will say this. He's right on the whole destruction of the nuclear family thing. I already talked about that plenty of times and just recently did a video talking about it too with the one of the BLM chapter founders quitting and him saying that they were against the nuclear family. So I will give him that one. And then he said the destruction of America. Oh, he fit right in at Fox News because they say that all the time. Will I say that BLM has definitely done some damage? I would say yeah. But when he says the destruction of America compared to all the other stuff that's going on, I think that might be a bit of a reach. Having a brother and friend in prison, a brother who died from an overdose, and another brother who was murdered, Yeshua hates what is going on in his community. Well, let's see here. A brother and friend in prison, how did they get into prison? If it wasn't unjustly or something like that, they got themselves there. A brother who died from an overdose, no one told him to OD, and another brother who was murdered. Now that one, depending on the circumstances, there's some sympathy there. But this guy screams self-hate to me. Like, I'm getting self-hate vibes from him, and he's going to instill that into her. I'm telling you, he's planting the seed early. Witnessing the tragedy of his relatives and friends inspired Yeshua to address the issues on social media. Speaking out against critical race theory, Yeshua said that skin color does not matter. He says skin color does not matter. This is why I think him saying that he wasn't going to talk to his daughter about segregation too much later in her life was a bunch of BS. He wasn't going to tell her at all. But guess what? That's dangerous, because what if she ends up getting racially profiled or whatever the case may be? Then she's going to come crying home, crying tears to you, wondering why I didn't have that discussion. And the thing is, what prompted him to do this video was from footage that she saw about segregation. So that means the only reason he brought it to the forefront is because she brought it to his attention. Which also goes back to my thing of saying he never was going to tell her about this. He was never planning on telling her about the true atrocities that have fallen upon black people in America at the hands of you-know-who. I'm so overwhelmed. It's such a blessing, but the main thing I want to get out there is I want little white kids to know they are not oppressors. Y'all, I had to drop my phone. I want little black kids to know they are not oppressed. I had to drop it again. Man, he went to the right place to do this interview. And they can do anything they want to do, anything they put their mind to. You can overcome any obstacle. Your skin color does not matter, Yeshua said. CRT curriculum has sparked a national conversation about the role of race and racism in school districts across the country. Well, the establishment. Often compared by critics to actual racism, CRT is a school of thought that generally focuses on how power structures and institutions impact racial minorities. And see, the thing you got to wonder is, why are they trying so hard not to have that be there and not be taught in schools? I just did a video about Texas and how they literally want to ban the talk about Dub S in schools. Shoot, they barely talk about Black History Month during Black History Month. So that didn't surprise me in the least bit. And also in Texas, I just recently did a video talking about how I said believe Texas is coming a dictatorship, saying that they will do financial punishments on institutions if they kneel before the national anthem. But back to him, he's doing himself and his daughter a huge disservice, especially his daughter, considering she's the one that brought it to his attention. I'm gonna be honest, this guy's lying through his teeth. He had no plans or intentions of telling his daughter about the way of the world, talking about I was going to tell her much later in life. Now listen to that. He said much later in life. He never specified when in life he was going to actually tell her. That's why I truly believe, and based on everything that he said afterwards, that he was not going to tell her anything about what's really going on. He was going to shield her from and blind her from all of that stuff going on in the world. And I wonder if he sits home and tells her that you're not like those other kids. And going back to me believing that the mother is of another ethnic group, probably saying, "Oh, you don't fall into the category of those kids," and we know what I mean when he says those kids. So you don't have to worry about that. That's another thing that kind of pisses me off when people have children who are quote unquote mixed or biracial, is the stuff that they probably tell them, trying to make it seem like they'll have a higher lot in life or a higher pedestal in life because they look different than the aesthetic of a black person, and tell them that they'll be better, that they will advance more and everything like that, because nothing will happen to them. Because in the news, who do you mostly see them put out there? Even if they're children, they tend to look darker. Their hair might look a little bit more kinky, especially versus a child that looks like her. But guess what? They're starting to pop up a little bit more now. So if we know he's not going to tell his daughter much later in life, in his words, about what's going on, what is he telling her right now? Well, we got a taste of it with this. But we wonder what else he's telling her. Because we know what he's not telling her. He said your skin color does not matter. Okay. Keep thinking that. What bubble is he living in? Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one.